semiconductor industry is characterized by something called Moore's law, which simply says that an average size chip doubles in capacity every few years or every year and a half. And based on that, over the last 40 years, we have had a total of, I was seeing a talk somewhere, over a 10 million fold improvement in capacity of these chips and capabilities of these chips. There is another factor of 10 to 100 left. So we are at the tail end of that tremendous scaling curve that we were on. And after that, we are done from a pure hardware point of view. What this particular expedition does, if it succeeds, is it continues for another couple of decades by allowing software to now keep squeezing out what the hardware can give.
As the devices shrink, you are trying to manufacture them with conceptually fewer and fewer atoms. So if you look at any given dimension of a transistor, over time we are trying to manufacture that with fewer and fewer atoms, and therefore any error in manufacturing, any tolerance that exists, has a bigger impact. So just as an example, when my transistor was, let's say, 100 atoms wide, an error of 1 atom is 1%. The same 1 atom error during the lithography phase of the chip now in a 5 atom wide device translates into a 20% error. So just the magnitude of variability, the impact of that manufacturing tolerances becomes higher and higher.
I used to be a designer at Intel in 20 years ago or so, and we would see a variability of like 5% from one chip to the other in terms of its performance or in terms of its power consumption. And we would design 5% of margin. And over the years, it was 10% by the time I left Intel. And then I happened to see it more recently, and the margins are something like 40 to 60%. That means the designers today, the chip designers, are giving 40 to 60% margin in order to make sure that they can keep the fiction alive. And what is that fiction? That the software assumes all chips are identical.
Howsoever well-behaved or ill-behaved the hardware is more or less irrelevant if the software application doesn't notice it. And this fact has been largely missed by the semiconductor industry. And part of it has to do with divisions within the computing industry. Software folks are very, very different, very differently positioned than hardware folks, which are very differently positioned from the technology folks. And one good part about this expedition is we're trying to bring in folks from all these 3 categories, and very well-known folks from all these 3 categories. And hopefully, the solution that ends up would be optimal in the true sense.
UC San Diego is a lead institution, but it's coupled by 2 other UC campuses, UCLA and UC Irvine, as well as Stanford, Michigan, and Illinois. They all bring very distinctive expertise. Michigan, for example, is one of the only 2 schools in the world which is able to manufacture chips in-house based around the ARM processor. And that's an expertise which is just irreplaceable, and that would let us in this expedition to really take it all the way down, where we would create hardware which would be designed for this variability a bit more. So for example, we would have processors which would be instrumented on chip with sensors measuring the various performance metrics and thereby measuring their performance variability.
So when we looked at it, we thought, well, of hardware and software, the more adaptable one, the more flexible one is actually the software. So what if we thought of a new architecture from hardware to software that actually allows software to change, but it cannot change randomly, it cannot change without some plan. So this software is proactive. This is a software stack that we envision in which we are monitoring hardware, and based on that we're making changes. So that's the big difference it does. Now, what the impact will it be? If you succeed, you will be able to now build chips which are more close to the nominal size for a design, and have software adjust to that hardware reality. And while software is adjusting to a chip's variation, it can also adjust to the environment in which that chip is placed.
Lots of mobile processors are essentially discarded and not used, or sold at a very low price simply because they leak too much, or they leak power too much. And so this variability in power hits mobile processors a lot. And just the sheer volume of how many of them are sold brings a big economic gain if this variability in power especially can be dealt with in layers above the hardware layer.
Embedded applications are one where we see significant variations in ambient operating conditions. Embedded systems also happen to be one where the sleep mode power matters quite a bit, and it turns out that one attribute where variability has manifested itself very early on is the sleep mode power. So there are these low-hanging fruits that from an application perspective are important for us to go after.
We already have a fairly extensive industry interactions from HP, Intel, ARM to Sun, Oracle, but we are looking for broader engagements, especially from fabless semiconductor companies that must necessarily throw the design over to a fab somewhere or take input from fab at a fairly coarse level. And then how do they maximize their process and design returns? And that's something that I think we'll be looking forward to.
Hopefully, this would mean turnaround time for chips to be much faster. Hopefully, the design cost of the chip, which is escalating like anything, to be more manageable. Hopefully, eventually, if things go really well, this would mean that chip manufacturing costs would also be more manageable, so that high-end manufacturing is more accessible to chip design companies at large.
In the longer run, by the end we are done, we really believe we may end up sort of totally restructuring how applications interact with the hardware, really be more exposed to the lower layer characteristics, and sort of computing, or the software part of computing, essentially becomes more aware of the physical attributes of the hardware.